The Chilean Navy is the naval force of Chile. History, origins and the wars of independence. The origins of the Chilean Navy date back to 1817, when General Bernardo O'Higgins prophetically declared after the Chilean victory at the Battle of Chacabuco that 100 such victories would count for nothing if Chile did not gain control of the sea. This led to the development of the Chilean Navy, and the first legal resolutions outlining the organization of the institution were created. Chile's first national fleet and the Academy for Young Midshipmen, which was the predecessor of the current Naval Academy, were founded, as well as the Marine Corps and the Supply Commissary. The first commander of the Chilean Navy was Manuel Blanco Encalada. However, the famous British naval commander Lord Cochrane, who formerly had been a captain in the Royal Navy, was hired by Chileans to organize and command the Navy. Cochrane recruited an almost all-Anglophone complement of officers and midshipmen and crews of British, Irish and American seamen. He became a key figure in the war against Loyalist forces in Peru and was instrumental in taking control of the fortresses of Valdivia, even though he failed in his attempt to conquer Chiloé Island. In March 1824, the Chilean Navy and Army undertook an expedition to expel the Spanish from Chiloé archipelago. An expedition was dispatched to Chiloé Island, however ended in failure when the Chilean army led by George Beechef was defeated at the Battle of Mocopoli. It was only after Ramon Fray's Chiloé expedition in 1826 did the Royalist forces at Chiloé under the command of Antonio de Quintanilla surrender, and Chiloé joined the new Chilean nation. Age of exploration, territorial expansion and wars. After the Wars of Independence, a series of conflicts demonstrated the importance of the Navy to the nation. First of these conflicts were the War of the Confederation, the Chincha Islands War and the War of the Pacific. The founding of Fuerte Bulnes in the Strait of Magellan marked the starting point of a series of Chilean Navy explorations, led by Navy hydrographers like Francisco Vidal Gómez and Francisco Hudson, in the unknown zone between the Strait of Magellan and Chiloé. To deal with this new area of activity, the Navy founded in 1874 the Hydrographic Office, whose first director was Francisco Vidal Gómez. The Chilean war hero and martyr Arturo Prat is regarded as the ultimate example of the commitment of the Navy to its country. After his death while leading a boarding party onto the enemy ironclad Huáscar at the naval battle of Iquique on 21 May 1879. During the war against Peru and Bolivia, the anniversary of this battle is celebrated every year as a public holiday called Dia de las Glorias Navales. Prat is also considered to be one of the co-founders of the Naval Seaman Training School in 1868, which began operating a year later, and was one of the Naval Academy's finest graduate officers that in 1943 it became the National Naval School Arturo Prat in his honor. The Navy further distinguished itself during the Battle of Pisagua in 1879, led by both the Navy and the Marine Artillery groups and Marine Infantry, the world's first modern military landing operation that resulted in Chilean victories in other parts of Peru's Tarapacá region, and resulted to its annexation by Chile. After Navy visits to Easter Island in 1875 and 1887, Chilean Navy officer Policarpo Toro managed to negotiate an incorporation of the island into Chile with native Rapa Nui in 1888. By occupying Easter Island, Chile joined the imperial nations, with the Peruvian navy destroyed, Bolivia becoming a landlocked country and Argentina having only a brown water navy. The Chilean Navy had a regional hegemony in the years following the War of the Pacific. To secure this advantage and not letting new Argentine acquisitions challenge Chilean naval power, the Chilean government decided to modernize its navy. The organization plan included the ordering of 2 cruisers, 2 torpedo boat destroyers and the modernization of 2 armored ships in English docks. Civil War and arms race. A new pre-dreadnought battleship, Capitan Pratt, was ordered under the new construction program in 1889. The advent of the 1891 Chilean Civil War saw a breach between the 2 branches of the Chilean armed forces. While the bulk of Navy sided the Congress side, the majority of the Chilean army remained loyal to José Manuel Balmaceda. When the majority of the National Congress broke relations with the government, George Montt took control of the fleet at Valparaiso, and with notable politicians like Ramon Barros Luco on board, the fleet sailed north to the nitrate-rich Tarapacá area, which Chile had seized from Peru 10 years earlier. Tarapacá was by that time Chile's richest region in terms of natural resources, and was without the fleet practically out of reach for the Chilean army. From here the Navy organized an army made of nitrate miners, which they armed and trained to face the 40,000-men strong Army of Chile. In August 1891 the new army was disembarked in Quintero and defeated the Chilean army at the Battle of Quincón and the Battle of Placile before the presidential faction disbanded and the congressional side took power. On the elections of October 1891, George Montt was elected president. Not all Navy officers sided with the Congress. Some, like Juan Williams Rebolledo, Juan José Latour and Policarpo Toro, remained on the presidential side, and Francisco Vidal Gómez declared his neutrality. After the war, these officers were removed from their offices. In contrast to these officers whose career or influence in the Navy was truncated by the war, the 1891 Chilean Civil War served as a starting point of a successful career in the Navy for a generation of young officers like Francisco Nef and others who sided with the Congressionals who won the war. After incidents with Chile in 1872, 1877 and 1878, Argentina had decided that a brown water navy, even if modern, was not enough to back up its ambitions in Patagonia and the South Atlantic. Both countries were distracted in the next few years by Argentina's internal military operations against natives and Chile's War of the Pacific against Bolivia and Peru. But by 1890 a full-fledged naval arms race was underway between the two. The Boundary Treaty of 1881 between Chile and Argentina had been a major success in laying the groundwork for nearly all of Chile's and Argentina's 5,600 kilometers of shared borders. But the drawing of boundaries in the largely unexplored inland Patagonia soon became a major source of territorial disputes. Over the 1880s and 1890s, Chile and Argentina engaged in an arms race fueled by nationalistic rhetoric and tax income from the blooming economies. Both countries signed a treaty in 1902 to end the arms race. However, in 1904 Brazil ordered 2 Minas Gerais-class dreadnoughts to be built by the United Kingdom. In response, Argentina ordered 2 Rivadavia-class dreadnoughts with an option for a third from the United States. They also ordered 12 destroyers from 3 nations in Europe. With its major rival acquiring so many modern vessels, Chile was forced to respond. Though this was delayed by financial depression brought on by a major earthquake and a drastic fall in the nitrate market in 1906 and 1907, respectively. During the 1890s, the Chilean Navy carried out many hydrographic surveys in the Patagonian channels aimed to improve navigation and explore the river baselands of Patagonia. A German geographer, Hans Stefan, led Navy explorations to western Patagonia, laying the groundwork for colonization of what would be AISE Q10 region years later. The Navy occasionally collaborated with European naturalists such as Carl Scotsberg in the surveys of Chilean territory. Depression, mutiny and political turmoils. In 1931, the Navy once more made headlines in Chilean politics when large portions of it began a mutiny that demanded the president to rescind a salary reduction. The demands were later expanded to include an agrarian reform, industrial solidarity, and a payment of the external debt by the millionaires. The mutineers had their ships located at Coquimbo and Talcahuano's naval base, which they controlled. Chilean government responded by sending the Chilean Air Force to bombard the ships in Coquimbo and charging Talcahuano's naval base. After the quelling of the rebellion, the Navy was purged. Although the mutiny had its origin among the lower ranks, it did not affect further expansion of it. However, role in Antarctica, incidents with Argentina and the Navy in the government. Chile formulated its Antarctic claim in 1940, and in 1947 the Navy established the first Chilean base, Captain Arturo Prat Base, in the continent before the Chilean Army or Air Force established their own bases. Since then, the Navy has played a major role in supplying Chilean bases and performing numerous rescue missions, among them of MS Explorer in 1972 and 2007. The Navy's sailing school ship, the Buque Escuela Esmeralda, began operations in 1952. It since has made various trips around the world, with selected cadet officers and NCOs on board trained in ship handling and operations as a requirement for graduation. Beginning in the 1950s, the Chilean Navy began to be involved in a series of incidents with the Argentine Navy and Argentine civilians in the disputed area of Beagle Channel and Cape Horn. This incidents took both form of incursions into Chilean waters by Argentine fishing ships and provocations such as the shelling of a Chilean lighthouse by the Argentine Navy during the Snipe incident of 1958. During the critical phases of the Beagle conflict of the late 1970s, the Chilean Navy played a decisive role in defending Chilean sovereignty over Picton, Lennox and Nueva Islands that the Argentine Navy planned to seize. While Argentina aborted its invasion plan, Operation Soberania, in December 1978, Argentina went rather into war with the United Kingdom in the Falklands just after 4 years. During that conflict, the Chilean Navy provided diversion to favor the British, as it was understood that if Argentina won the war they would once again try to seize Picton, Lennox and Nueva and Cape Horn. 1964 would see the birth of the modern Chilean Marine Corps of today. Naval educational institutions were reformed in 1968 when President Eduardo Frei Montalva created the Naval Specialities School system with headquarters in Las Salinas Naval Base in Vina del Mar. One of its schools, the Naval Seaman Training School, became the Seaman's School of the Navy. Captain Alejandro Navarrete Cisterna on the same year as its centenary, in honor of the first naval seaman to rise through the ranks to become a naval officer. The NSSS soon became the Naval Polytechnic Academy in 1995, through a merger of all its component schools, some of these schools staying as independent constituent academies. After the 1973 Chilean coup d'etat, together with the Army, the Air Force and the Carabineers, the Navy, led by Admiral José Toribio Moreno, became part of the government junta led by Army Commander-in-Chief Augusto Pinochet. and upon the latter's resignation from the junta leadership in 1981, ADM, Moreno became its chairman until March 1990, presiding over its sessions and those of the Legislative Commission, and was also concurrently the National Defense Minister. The training ship Esmeralda functioned as a floating prison and torture chamber for political prisoners during the 1973 to 1980 period of the military dictatorship. It is claimed that probably over 100 persons were kept there at times and subjected to hideous treatment. It was also an unprecedented period of growth and expansion of the naval service as more vessels became part of it. The Marines strengthened the Navy's Special Forces unit raised. Present. The 25,000-person Navy, including 5,200 Marines, is directed by Admiral Enrique Larrañaga Martin as of 2013. Of the fleet of 66 surface vessels, 21 are major combatant ships based in Valparaiso. The Navy operates its own aircraft for transport and patrol. There are no fighter or bomber aircraft. The Navy also operates 4 submarines and a tender ship to support them, all based in Talcahuano. The Navy permits the integration of Chile's Pacific and Southern Island regions, thus integrating its disjointed geography. The transport of passengers, especially during the school year or in cases of emergency, together with the supply of provisions and fuel, are of key importance to the inhabitants of these insular zones. The Chilean Navy is generally considered to be among the most capable and professional in the Americas, considered by specialists the 4th most capable navy in the Americas, behind Canadian, Brazilian and American navies, and is heavily aligned with significant naval powers such as the British Royal Navy. The institution regularly carries out civil operations whereby Navy professionals provide social assistance and health care to the civilian population, and provide support in cases of natural catastrophe. It also undertakes preventative education campaigns for Chile's population on issues that include security on beaches and seaside resorts and measures to be taken in the case of a tsunami. The most important naval bases and supply depots are in the Pacific Ocean, Iquique, Easter Island, Valparaiso, Talcahuano, Puerto Montt in the Atlantic Zone, Strait of Magellan and Tierra del Fuego, Punta Arenas in the Beagle Channel, Cape Horn and Drake Passage, Puerto Williams, and in Antarctica, Captain Arturo Prat Base. These are now spread into 5 naval zones, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th naval zones. Wars and conflicts. Iraq War. Infantry, submarine frigates, fast attack craft, replenishment vessels, amphibious warfare patrol boats. Smaller vessels distributed in the 5 naval zones are Oceanographic Research Ship Cabo de Hornos, an oceanographic research ship operated by the Chilean Navy, delivered to the Navy in April 2013. Aircraft infantry, Chilean Marines. The Chilean Marines, or the land amphibious attack force of the Chilean Navy, the 5,000-man force combines special training and tactics with state-of-the-art equipment. Future Navy acquisitions, helicopters and armored amphibians for LSDH Aldea. The construction of another 3 PZM Patrulheros de Zona Maritima PZM-1 for each naval zone. Search and rescue aircraft to replace Cessna 02A Skymaster. Partenavia App 68TP selected. Elbert Hermes 900 unmanned aerial vehicle for maritime patrol tasks under evaluation. SHOA, the Servicio Hidrográfico y Oceanográfico de la Armada de Chile is an agency of the Chilean Navy managing situations dealing with hydrology and oceanography including tides and tsunamis. SHOA is also the official Chilean government timekeeper. Ranks and rates. Ranks and rates are shown on the sleeves of all Chilean Navy summer uniforms. Shoulder and sleeve ranks are inspired by those in the British Royal Navy, the French Navy and the German Navy. Officers, WOs and NCOs of the Marines add the Infanteria Marina title to the ranks from seamen onward, as the Marines are part of the Navy. All officers, active or reserve, study at the Arturo Prat Naval Academy and later in the Naval Polytechnic Academy and the Naval War Academy receive improved training and education, to be promoted as well as training in his/her specialty field, while all active and reserve NCOs study at the Seamen's School of the Navy, Alejandro Navarrete Cisnerna, and later in the Naval Polytechnic Academy and its attached and independent colleges for later specialty training. Commanders-in-Chief. Historic ships. See List of decommissioned ships of the Chilean Navy. Gallery.